What is going on, guys? Bash and YUGIOH here, coming at you with my top 5 budget decks for this current format of October through November until we get the November or December ban list. So these are going to be decks that I believe can be made for around $50 if not less. I think this is very helpful for especially newer players who want just a budget deck that can get them a few wins here and there. Honorable mentions will be Chainburn and Barrier Statue. Chainburn, with a crazy amount of monsters that decks like Spirals or Pendulum Magicians put on the board, it makes sense that cards like Ceasefire and Just Desserts will be able to cause more burn because there will be more monsters on the board. Also, Chainburn players can play cards like Ojama Trio and Ojama Duo that would give monsters to their opponent's field, clogging up their fields, and Spiral players aren't really, I would say, prepared to take on that much more extra deck resources that they would have to expend, because their extra decks tend to be very calculated to what they need to do, and I don't really see them running other Link monsters except for Deco Talker and Double Helix. Maybe a Proxy Dragon, but that's it. So things like Ojama Trio and Ojama Duo would be very effective against them. And Barrier Statue, every single deck in the format special summons, making Barrier Statue a very viable option if you want to get a few cheap wins here and there, maybe even top a local or probably a regional, in my opinion. All you really need to do is play the correct Barrier Statues, which I believe to be, in this current format, the Dark attribute Barrier Statue and the Wind, because ABC and Trickstars are light, Paleozoic Mermail are water, Infernos are fire, and Earth, well, you just don't want to give up the free Mrs. Radiant, and I believe some of the Spirals are Earth, so in my opinion the Dark and the Wind attribute are the best options if you want to go in the direction of the Barrier Statue. Now let's get into our top 5, guys. At number 5, I'm going to have Lightsworn. Lightsworn is a deck that pretty much never dies. It's been a strong deck, well, quote unquote strong, ever since it came out, basically. It's a very versatile deck that can combine itself with the zombie engines to make absolutely ridiculous boards, giving it like 4 to 5 boss monsters it can just put on the field for no reason at all. Things like Judgment Dragon, Cypher Lord Omega, Minerva, and I've even seen some Lightsworn Firewall spams, but that won't be too budget. This one's kind of on the brink because it has slightly expensive cards. Pretty much every Lightsworn is dirt cheap, except for things like your Minerva and your Cyphering Lord Omega, things like that. It won't be too cheap, maybe like $8 to $10, but you don't need to play a playset of each. So I'm pretty confident you're going to be able to make a decent Lightsworn deck for roughly, I don't know, $50, maybe $60. They're also going to have a new Link monster coming out, so it's very worth the investment, in my opinion at least, to pick up the cards as soon as possible and be ready for what could be a very powerful asset to the deck. It also has access to an extremely impressive card in the name of Fairy Tale Snow. Pretty much every Lightsworn player plays this card because it is just absolutely ridiculous. It's a great card, and Lightsworn is definitely one that I would put in my top 5. For number 4, this is one that hasn't been really relevant for a while, but I'm going to put Monarchs up here. Monarchs is a very dirt cheap deck. You can pretty much pick up three of the structure deck and just have a deck ready to go. It doesn't require an extra deck, making it more budget friendly. And the cards that you do need to pick up aren't really that much. You even have space to pick up a Raigeki if you want. You know, pick up 3 structure decks. Raigeki should be $45, $50. It's really all you need. This format, it's very extra deck dependent, with things like Spirals and ABC, even Pendulum Magicians. And I think that this would be a very viable option. The only thing that this deck doesn't do anything against is decks like True Draco and Trickstars, because Draco definitely extra deck, and Trickstars very rarely goes into the extra deck and plays cards like Droll and Lockbird and things like that, which can shut off Monarchs immediately. That's why they're a little bit lower on my list, but I still think they're a very viable option. Plus, if Monarchs want to counter the True Draco Trickstar decks, they can play cards like Skill Drain or Monarchs Erupt. I think they're good, and I think they're worth taking a look at. Number 3, I'm going to put Paleozoic Frogs. The only really expensive card is Totally Awesome, which is at $4 to $5. Everything else, except for like the Frog Engine, which might be a little pricey, like $3 to $4 I think, but there's really not that much, because everything else is common, and it's not something that people are really prepared for, so they're not, because it's not a meta quote unquote deck, so people won't be citing things like Royal Decree or Denko Sekka as much as they should. Doesn't really need hand traps because the entire deck is a trap, and Cardomize is not completely necessary, but it can be very helpful if you already have at least 2 copies. Then I really suggest making Paleozoic because it's a very good deck, and with things like Miss Starboy, then you really can't go wrong. I mean, it's a fun deck. I enjoy playing it. I'm not good at it, but I enjoy playing it because it's a friendly option, it's budget, and it's proven to be a very good deck. Number 2, I'm gonna put ABC. ABC, of course, is a very powerful deck that has not been hit at all. It's a great rank 4 spam at the very worst, and it has a proven record of being a top deck in the meta. What else do you really need? And you can make this deck with picking up 3 structure decks, which is like $35. Everything else you need is really not expensive at all. Like I showed even in my ABC deck profile, a lot of the cards that I picked up were really not that expensive. If you want to change out the Solemn Strikes for recalls, which are like 10 cents or something, that's perfectly fine, and it still makes the deck a very viable option, you know? It's a great deck for returning players because it doesn't directly rely on link summoning, and if it does, it's very basic to learn. So it's a great deck for budget players, it's a great deck for returning players, and it's just an incredible deck overall. On to our number 1, I'm putting Pendulum Magicians. Yes, it was meta, and yes, it was also dirt freaking cheap. I put every card I would need to build a Pendulum Magician deck, and it came out to no more than $55. No more than $55, excluding obvious hand traps like Ash Blossom and Beals and Droll Lockbird. Not necessary to play the deck, it's necessary if you want to consistently do good. But if you want to just pick up a deck and have success with it, you know, you're not going to have like ultimate success, you're not going to top every local, you're not going to top every regional. There's a very good deck. You can pick it up for $50. It's extremely consistent, it has great interruption, it has great grind game, it has a proven to be the top tier deck in a meta, and there's really not much else to say. Pendulum Magician is a fantastic deck, and I think it is earned the right to be a number 1 spot, even if it doesn't have cards like Beals, Ash, Droll, or any real hand traps. But yeah, so that's gonna be my top 5, guys. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, I really appreciate it, and leave a comment with your own budget decks that you might think might do good that probably weren't on this list, and I might include them in a later list down the road. Alright, I'll see you all in the next one. Later.